Ghost Rider, you are not cleared for this airspace. Identify yourself immediately. The transmission snapped through the encrypted channel, sharp, official, unyielding. At 30,000 feet above the cold shimmer of the Pacific, two F-22 Raptors sliced through the morning haze, their pilots scanning radar scopes that pulsed with the signature of an unauthorized aircraft. It wasn't a military transponder, and yet the call sign that flickered across their screens was one every pilot knew. Ghost Rider. A name not used in decades. A name whispered with respect, and something else, unease. Inside the unidentified aircraft, a lone figure adjusted her oxygen mask. Calm eyes behind mirrored glass. Her hands, steady on the worn yoke, betrayed none of the tension rising in her chest. She'd flown through storms that swallowed light, through nights where lightning had painted the clouds like broken veins across the sky. But this moment, felt different. Because she wasn't supposed to be here. And yet she was. The F-22s closed in fast, their silver skins glinting like predatory wings. From one of them came another voice, clipped and edged with frustration. Ghost Rider, respond or you will be escorted out of restricted airspace. Still, silence. She exhaled slowly. Her fingers brushed the worn patch sewn inside her flight glove, an old squadron emblem, frayed by years and memories she rarely allowed to surface. The hum of the engines filled the cockpit like a heartbeat. She could feel it, steady and alive beneath her seat, a reminder that she had one last thing to finish before the sky would let her go. Her name was Captain Mara Vance. Civilian now. Just a commercial pilot flying passenger routes across the Pacific. Or so everyone thought. Hours earlier, she'd taken off from Seattle on a routine cargo flight bound for Japan. The weather had been clear, the horizon a perfect line of dawn gold. But she carried something heavier than freight, an unspoken promise, a final act of quiet defiance that no manifest could record. Because Mara Vance had once been the best fighter pilot in the 23rd Tactical Squadron, until the day her command turned its back on her. Years ago, she'd been the one flying formation over the Hindu Kush, her call sign Ghost Rider whispered through encrypted channels as a symbol of precision, courage, and silence. She never missed a mark, never broke formation, never spoke more than she had to. Her wingmen used to joke that she was half machine, built out of discipline and starlight. But war doesn't keep its promises. Her co-pilot and closest friend, Lieutenant Aaron Doyle, had gone down in a storm of tracer fire and betrayal. His final radio transmission had been cut off by command, someone had pulled them out early, too early, and she'd watched his blip vanish from the radar. The mission logs were sealed. The incident buried. The brass called it unavoidable combat loss. She called it something else. Then, as if the heavens themselves were listening, her aircraft banked slightly east, slicing through a wall of fog. For a moment, all three planes were flying in formation, military and civilian, Predator and Ghost, like some strange reunion of past and present. Ramirez realized then why the name felt heavy. The real Ghost Rider had trained his commanding officer. Her record was legend. Her disappearance, mystery. He switched to the open channel. If you are who I think you are, then I'll pretend I never saw this. Mara's lips curved just slightly. The faintest acknowledgement. No words, just silence, her language of choice. She pushed the throttle forward. The world outside blurred into light and cloud. Below her, the Pacific stretched endless and dark, swallowing reflections of the aircraft above it. When she reached the coordinates, the beacon's indicator light turned green. She armed the release mechanism and dropped it into the waves below. For a moment, she closed her eyes. The image of Aaron flashed behind them, not the man falling from the sky in fire, but the one laughing beside her in training, teasing her for never smiling during briefings. She whispered to the memory, not for the radio, but for herself. The beacon disappeared into the mist. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. Because command had been listening. The encrypted signal she'd received had been intercepted, and now the radar screens at Joint Base Elmendorf lit up with alerts. Unauthorized aircraft. Possible breach. Within minutes, a general's voice thundered over the airwaves, ordering Ramirez to force the unidentified pilot down. Ramirez didn't respond. His jaw tightened. He looked again at the cargo plane beside him. The woman flying it didn't look reckless. She looked resolved. He switched back to the secure frequency. "Ma'am," he said softly, though she couldn't hear him. "I don't know what they did to you. But I won't be the one to stop you." When the next command came, "Authorize a warning pass," he broke protocol. His Raptor peeled away, climbing hard to a higher altitude. His wingman followed suit. The official report would later say they lost radar lock. Mara flew on, alone again. 2 hours later, her fuel gauge dipped into red. She turned back toward the coast, heavy with exhaustion but lighter somehow inside. The beacon had been deployed. Whether it reached anyone didn't matter. She'd done what she came to do. But as she crossed back into controlled airspace, her radio crackled once more. A voice, faint and broken, rose through the static. "Ghost Rider, this is Iron Hand. If you can hear me, it's good to be home." Her heart stopped. It was Aaron's voice. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The sky blurred. Her hands trembled around the controls. She blinked hard, trying to focus on the altimeter, the horizon, anything to anchor her in the present. The signal was weak, fading in and out, but it was him. Alive. That night, she left the Air Force. She left behind the medals, the uniforms, and the call sign Ghost Rider. She learned to smile again for passengers boarding commercial jets, to say welcome aboard like it meant nothing more than a flight schedule. She hid her past beneath a crisp white shirt and a silver pin. Until today. Until the encrypted channel she hadn't used in 8 years flickered alive on her dash, carrying one simple message: Aaron Doyle, missing in action. Presumed alive. Coordinates attached. The signal came from deep within a restricted military zone near the Aleutians, a place she knew too well. A place civilians were forbidden to enter. So she didn't ask permission. She filed a false flight plan, loaded a single crate into her cargo hold, and pointed her aircraft toward the coordinates. She told no one. She didn't even tell herself it was real, only that she had to know. Now, 2 F-22 Raptors were on her tail. The lead pilot, Captain Ramirez, could see her clearly through the canopy. A civilian jetliner in restricted skies. Unauthorized. Unresponsive. Protocol demanded interception. And yet something about the call sign, something about the calm defiance in her silence, gnawed at him. He'd heard the stories. Everyone had. Ghost Rider, the pilot who once guided an entire squadron home through a sandstorm without radar. Ghost Rider, the woman who refused to abandon a wingman even as command ordered her out. He didn't know she was alive. He didn't know she was the one he was about to confront. As his Raptor drifted alongside the cargo plane, the morning light caught her cockpit glass. For a heartbeat, he saw her, helmet off now, auburn hair drawn back, eyes fixed forward, expression still and unflinching. She didn't reach for the radio. She didn't gesture. She simply looked ahead, as if the sky itself was daring her to move. Ramirez spoke again. "Ghost Rider, by order of the United States Air Force, you are to change course immediately." Still nothing. Inside her cockpit, Mara's thoughts were quiet but sharp. Every breath measured. Every decision deliberate. She could feel the weight of the past pressing on her shoulders like gravity. Her flight computer blinked warnings in crimson: restricted zone. Fuel critical. Com link unsafe. She ignored them all. The crate behind her contained a single beacon transmitter. If Aaron was alive, if by some miracle he'd survived, this signal could bring him home. But to activate it, she had to fly directly over the coordinates embedded in that message. And she was 3 minutes out. Ramirez hesitated. He could order a forced escort. He could report her, let command make the call. But something in her posture stopped him. He keyed his mic privately to his wingman. "Does she seem like she knows exactly what she's doing?" "Yeah," came the answer. "Too calm for a civvy." "You thinking what I'm thinking?" "Maybe." A silence hung between them. Tears pressed behind her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She steadied her breathing, locked her focus, and listened until the transmission faded to silence. When she finally landed, waiting for her on the tarmac were uniformed officers. Security. Military police. They surrounded her aircraft before the engines even cooled. She stepped down calmly, helmet in hand, uniform creased, hair wind-tossed. Her presence radiated quiet authority, the kind that doesn't beg for recognition. The commanding officer approached, clipboard in hand, face carved with irritation. "Captain Mara Vance," he said, emphasizing the title like an accusation. "You've violated restricted airspace, falsified flight plans, and interfered with active operations." She didn't answer. He stepped closer. "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Her gaze drifted past him, to the horizon where the ocean met the sky. Somewhere out there, a beacon pulsed faintly beneath the waves. Somewhere out there, Aaron Doyle was alive. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but steady. "I went looking for the truth. That's all." The officer scoffed. "Truth doesn't justify treason." Her eyes met his. "Sometimes it does." That line hung in the air, echoing in the silence that followed. Around them, the ground crew had paused, watching. The young airman nearby, barely old enough to shave, looked at her with uncertain awe. They didn't know her story, but they could feel it. She didn't fight as they took her into custody. She didn't resist when they led her down the runway in cuffs. Her steps were slow, measured. Dignity made visible. What she didn't see, what no one saw yet, was the transmission replaying in a classified control room miles away. The beacon she dropped had pinged not once, but twice. The second ping came from a life raft drifting 50 miles south of her drop point. Inside it, a gaunt man with sunburned skin and hollow eyes whispered into a cracked transmitter, "Ghost Rider, I knew you'd come." Hours later, when the recovery team brought him in, word spread fast. A missing pilot, found alive after 8 years. A beacon traced back to an unauthorized civilian aircraft. And a call sign resurrected in defiance of silence. By the time the military confirmed the rescue, Mara Vance's cell door opened without a word. A general stood there, older, weary, eyes shadowed with the weight of too many decisions. He didn't speak at first. He simply looked at her, the woman who had done what bureaucracy would not. Finally, he said, "You disobeyed orders." She nodded. "I did." He exhaled slowly, eyes softening. "You also brought one of our own home." She didn't smile. "I just answered a call." He studied her for a moment, then handed her a folded sheet of paper. It was her reinstatement letter. At the bottom, in bold print, was her old call sign, "Ghost Rider." When she walked out of that base, the sky above was streaked with evening gold. The world felt open again, infinite. She looked up at the contrails crossing the horizon and felt something she hadn't in years, peace, and maybe, forgiveness. That night, as the sun slipped beneath the sea, air traffic controllers across the Pacific heard it again, just once, clear and unmistakable over an open frequency. "This is Ghost Rider. Mission complete." No one knew if it was her or just a signal echoing through the network. But pilots everywhere stopped for a heartbeat, listening. And in that pause, silent, reverent, they understood. Because every pilot knows the sky keeps its secrets. But sometimes, one of them returns to remind the rest what honor looks like. They say silence can roar louder than any engine, and that courage often wears the face of quiet defiance. Mara Vance had proven both. And for the F-22 pilots who first heard her name over the radio, the story became legend. Whenever the call sign Ghost Rider flashed unexpectedly across a radar screen, they no longer thought of protocol or punishment. They thought of a woman who broke the rules to keep a promise. She had no need for applause. Her victory was not in headlines or medals. It was in the living heartbeat of a man once lost, and in the silent respect of those who followed her path through the clouds. To this day, no one knows how she received that original message, or who sent it. Some say it was a ghost in the system. Others say it was fate. But those who knew Mara Vance, those who'd flown with her, believed something simpler, that loyalty leaves echoes, and that some calls are meant to be answered, no matter the cost. Her story would spread quietly, told in hangars and mess halls, in the quiet hum between flights. Pilots spoke of her not as a rebel, but as a reminder, that the measure of a soldier isn't obedience, but integrity. And somewhere, high above the clouds where the world falls away into endless blue, a single contrail sometimes appears alone, tracing a path across the horizon. Pilots call it Ghost Rider's mark, a whisper of the woman who defied silence with grace, who proved that even after the world forgets your name, the sky never does. As the world remembers her tale, one truth endures: silent strength is never weakness. It is the calm before justice, the pause before redemption, the steady voice that speaks without words. If you're watching this story now, take a moment to think about the unseen heroes among us, the ones who move quietly, without recognition, carrying the weight of promises the world will never know. Let their silence remind you that courage is not always loud, and that sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is simply keep flying. Wherever you're watching from tonight, remember her name, Ghost Rider, and what it means to those who live between heaven and earth. And if this story reached you, share it. Because somewhere out there, someone still believes that honor flies on, even when the world falls silent.